Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about the time Dave Chappelle got called out by this other comedian, Bob Levy, because he thought Dave stole one of his jokes and used it in Chappelle's show. So he decided to bring it up to him when he had a chance, and it ended up being a disaster, and Bob was never really able to live it down. And I'm sure most people aren't that familiar with him. You know, he hasn't really had the best career as a comedian, but he's mostly known for being on the Stern Show in the 2000s. And he was Artie Lang's opener for a while he was still on the show. But this caused a rift in their relationship because Artie initially told Bob not to bring this up to Dave, like he knew it'd be a bad look. But I guess Bob just didn't want to listen. So next time Dave was on the Stern Show, he decided to call in and bring this up to him. And it pretty much went how Artie thought it would. You know, this is why he didn't want him to bring it up. So he didn't defend him at all. And he kind of took Dave's side afterwards and just kept making fun of Bob for the whole thing, which he didn't handle very well. But Artie's the one that tried to warn him about it, you know, because the joke that he claims Dave stole from him isn't very original. Like, it's been around forever, and you wouldn't think a comedian would claim that they came up with it, or they'd want to claim they came up with it, because it's just a hacky joke. You know, it's something you'd expect to hear from like a 50-year-old failed comedian, which is pretty much what Bob is. But the joke he claims he wrote, like he's the first comedian to come up with this, is, "I'm going to beat my meat like it owes me money." I guess Bob Levy is the first person to think of that. You know, that's his claim to fame. He says he's been saying it since, I think, the early 90s, maybe late 80s. And he says he's always been using it as his opening line. So it sounds like he's a really talented comedian. You know, Chappelle, he would only steal from the best. But Bob wasn't too happy about it. You know, he wasn't flattered. And Artie, he was trying to talk some sense into him. He's like, "Dude, are you sure you came up with that?"
I'm being honest with him. I say, look, I don't think you have a good argument in this. The Dave Chappelle joke that he claimed Dave Chappelle on his show ripped off a joke that Bob wrote. Levy and me, a few days after it aired, had a gig together, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm furious with Chappelle." He stole one of my jokes on his show. And I go, "What joke?" And he goes, "Well, you know, the joke."
Beat your dick,
yeah. And I said, "Bob, listen, man, I don't know if you should fight this battle." And he's like, "Why? What are you talking about?" I don't. Are you sure you wrote that joke? I said, "That sounds like one of those public domain type." You know what I mean?
Sounds old.
And then he got. It sounds like, you know, it was at the first ever Friars Club dinner they were using that. And he's like, "No, no, no." And I saw he was very defensive about the fact that he wrote that joke. And then I said, "Well, listen, Bob, I hate to buzz your bubble, but I've heard other people say that before me and you started working together, because me and Levy started working together about when I started here."
Right.
And he goes, "Well, they stole it from me." And I go, "All right." So I could see he was passionate about it.
Yeah,
and
so
I kind of laid off. And then I heard Chappelle, and then Chappelle was going to be a guest on the show. And Levy said he's going to call in. I said, "Bob, please don't do that. You're not going to look great doing that."
And I think Bob was probably really pissed because the joke did well on Chappelle's show. Like, people thought it was really funny, but it was mostly because of the whole sketch and the lead up to it. And I don't think anybody believed it was completely original. You know, even Dave said he's not the first person to come up with that. Like he says, it's barbershop talk. But I'm sure he didn't think anybody would actually take credit for it or want to take credit for it. I mean, people use it all the time, and anybody could have come up with it. You know, it's not very creative. Like, also, Greg Fitzsimmons mentioned Joe Rogan, of course, had a similar joke in the early 90s, which I don't think he'd really want to take credit for. But Bob, he really wanted to take credit for his joke, and he didn't listen to what Artie had to say, even though Artie was trying to give him good advice by telling him not to bring it up. But the next time Dave Chappelle was on the Stern Show, Bob called in and brought it up to him, and Dave had the perfect response and just embarrassed Bob.
Hey, how you doing, Howard? Dave, I'm a big fan of yours, and I just wanted to know why one of my jokes actually ended up on your show one night.
Oh, really?
What is the joke?
I'm going to beat my blank like it owes me money. It was in one of the songs.
Oh, because you're a hack.
I'm a hack and you're taking my stuff.
I'm going to beat my blank like it owes me money. You wrote that?
Yes, I did write that, and I've been doing it for years, and it's been my opening line.
Oh, that's barbershop talk. And that's your opening line?
Yes. Well, it was on your show. I guess you liked it.
I must have seen you at a hole in
Well, you were at Caroline's one night for the Nasty Show with some of your friends that were in the audience.
Yeah, I was. You're right. I lift material from. What's your name again?
What was that?
What's your name again?
Reverend Bob Levy. I was on the show with you a couple times.
Oh, Bob Levy.
Oh, Bob, that's you.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this the Reverend Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, look at Bob. You think Dave's taking your material?
No, I'm
Bob, I
not saying
wouldn't
Dave. I'm
take-
saying his writers are dropping the ball and they're getting lazy.
Man,
No,
nobody
want to write it,
stole
I'll
that
write for
from
you.
you.
Dave says he did not steal from you.
No, I'm not saying it was him, but I'm saying it was probably one of his writers in the audience at the show, and they threw it in there.
You said I was in the audience stealing.
I know, you were at the show. You were at Caroline's. You were at the bar, and your friends came in. JC was there that night.
I promise you, Bob, nobody steals jokes on the show. I promise you. It's primarily me and one other dude. So
I mean, I've been doing that for a long time, and then all of a sudden it's on the show.
I don't know, man.
All right, Bob. Hey, Bob, what can I tell you?
The writers did a good job.
I don't know. Maybe great minds think alike.
Right. All right, Bob, thanks.
You got it.
Reverend Bob Levy.
Jeez Louise, man. Gangbanging. Over, I beat my blank like it owes me money.
And then afterwards, I think Bob was kind of upset that Artie didn't back him up or defend him. But, I mean, this is exactly how Artie thought it was going to go. You know, that's why I told him not to bring it up. But, of course, Bob didn't listen. So then Artie kept giving him shit for it. And during a roast that Bob was hosting, Artie roasted him for it. And he got offended by it. You know, he's all sensitive about it. So Artie knew it was getting to him, but he just enjoys messing with him. So he brought it up again on the wrap-up show. And at that point, Bob was just done. And he ended up backing out of all the dates he was supposed to open for Artie because he thought Artie was hurting his career by continuing to bring this up. But I think Artie was just kind of annoyed that Bob didn't listen to him. And then also, after all this, Bob claimed another comedian stole another one of his jokes. And of course, it's a joke that has been around forever that I'm sure a bunch of people have come up with. So I'm sure at that point, Artie's just thinking, how does this guy not realize how ridiculous this all sounds? But then also, he definitely does just like messing with Bob and bringing this up to him because he knows it gets to him.
And Bob explains his situation, and Chappelle goes, "Oh, so you must be a hack." And I said to Bob, "I can't defend you because I happen to agree with him." And so I stayed quiet, and I think he was a little mad I didn't defend him more. But I said, "Chappelle's not arguing my argument. I'm trying to be honest."
You told him not to do it.
I said, "Don't do it," and he sort of came off looking badly. And the first roast I was on, the Ronnie roast, you know, Bob's the host, and I re-brought it up, you know, with a couple of jokes, and the jokes got good laughs. They were, you know, they were funny, but he wasn't in the roast spirit. He was mad at me for doing that.
Right.
He thinks, I've said countless times, Bob is an amazing comic. He kills. He's funnier than me. He's one of the best comedians I've ever seen on stage. But with that, it's just an issue I have with him. And even in the roast, he didn't get into it. He's like, you know, in the roast, you hit
But maybe,
roast
let me take Bob's side for a second.
He thinks it's going to cost him work. He thinks people are going to... And meanwhile, it doesn't.
Well, I don't even know about this. I mean, is he thinking that everybody's hanging on this and saying, yeah, he's just a hack and he... You know,
I think Bob is probably thinking, why does Artie always have to bring this thing up? Why can't he just let it die?
And if you look at the context and how it was used on the Chappelle show, it's not flattering. It's not. It's a guy who's
right.
Also another
listen,
thing.
Artie,
but there's another thing Levy had, which is similar. Richard Belzer in a roast did a joke about someone who said the only way
you would be funny.
The only way you'd be funny. The only way you'd have a funny bone in your body is if I f***ed you. Levy saw that on a roast, a big roast, and says, now Belzer's ripping me off. And I said, Bob, really? You're going to claim you wrote that one too? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm telling you I wrote it. And then you go in your head, well, someone had to write these jokes, I guess. But if you went to Belzer, and the only time sort of that shit is allowed and fun, and even Gilbert will tell you, is at a roast. You know, that's when you could use those jokes. It's fun, you know, these old jokes that Dick Capri uses, you know. And he said, so now I'm going to, next time Belzer's on the show, I'm going to call her. I'm like, Bob, please don't do that.
Right, like, don't embarrass him.
I can't just say how, I'm trying to help him, and he thinks I'm insulting him. So the Chappelle thing, he even got off kind of easy, but if this ever gets into a real debate, and I said, Chappelle's a big star, you know, it's like...
And I think Bob was being way too sensitive about it, but Artie, he even admits that he likes to get Bob worked up. You know, he likes getting under his skin, and he knows this gets to him, so he keeps bringing it up on air. And it's so funny because Artie keeps saying he feels bad about it, and he tries to apologize to him, and he says he wants Bob to do the shows with him and open for him. But then you can tell he just can't help himself at times, and he keeps making fun of Bob for basically being a failed comedian. Like somebody mentions that Bob already found some new shows to do instead of opening for Artie, and Artie makes a joke about it, because nobody really believes that he was able to find another show that fast. And then he eventually calls in and Artie apologizes to him, but he said he already changed the dates, so Artie just keeps making fun of him.
I never agreed to do the Borgata with you yet, but so Levy called me, goes saying that he wasn't on the Borgata with you. I was thinking about doing it. He said he had another gig, so I said, yeah, I'll do it.
How did he get another gig so fast?
Oh, he gets gigs all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There's a lot of firehouses around.
This isn't helping you, Artie. See, that's the thing. I mean,
I think every town has a firehouse.
That's right.
The issue Bob has,
Volunteer
So
firehouse.
he can work anytime.
They got an oyster clam bake night.
oh, man.
He's going to be pissed.
He's going to be mad. Bob, do you accept Artie's apology, or are you sticking to your guns and not doing the shows?
No, I booked over the shows.
Oh, come on, Bob.
In the same town, the same night.
Now you're being ridiculous. Now you're being ridiculous.
Look, I don't, it feels like I can't fucking trust somebody. I don't like to fucking be around somebody like that. You know what I mean? I don't fucking do that to people.
I'm sorry then, because I've seen Bob kill so hard that people are barreled over laughing and they actually hit their head on the hose of the truck.
What truck is that?
Dude, Artie, in 5 years, you'll be fucking playing them.
No, I won't. I'll be dead in 5 years. Now, come on, you know that.
Bob,
Yeah, so Artie just couldn't help himself, and Howard was trying to mediate a little bit, but of course, he wasn't making things much better. Like Howard brings up that Artie mentioned the reason he likes to make fun of Bob and try to say things that get to him is because he could have seen a situation where his career might have played out like Bob's if he didn't get some lucky breaks. And I think Artie said this to try to sympathize with Bob a little bit. Like at one point he said the only difference in their careers is he just had more luck, which everybody disagreed with him on, but he was definitely trying to be nice to Bob by saying this. But of course when Howard brings it up, it does not sound good. And Bob gets really offended by it, because he's like, well, what's wrong with being me? What's wrong with my career? And Artie's like, oh, I wasn't trying to say that as an insult. I was just saying there could have been a situation where I'd be struggling financially if I didn't get a couple lucky breaks.
I think it's because Artie has said it. He said it as early as this morning. Artie said, if it wasn't for a couple of breaks that I got, I could end up being Bob Levy.
No.
You know what? It ain't too fucking bad being me, okay?
No, Bob. I didn't say it's so bad. I'm saying that, he's a guy who, has to work and get gigs, and I could turn down gigs now because I've been lucky. And I'm saying I could easily have had that happen to me. I got a couple of good breaks, that's all.
You mean it could have easily happened to you that you'd be Bob Levy?
No, it could have happened to me where I have bigger money issues in my life. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't have any issues. I'm fucking happy with. That's all that fucking matters.
All right, fine.
I don't give a fuck.
Fine. That wasn't meant to be an insult. But I apologize for what I said yesterday. It was out of line on the wrap-up show. I'm being dead serious.
Artie, you did say there are plenty of firehouses where Bob can perform, but he doesn't work.
I was trying to be funny. But clearly, look, the king of the roast here clearly is sensitive. I mean,
Isn't this a little weird, Artie?
And what makes this even funnier is now Dave Chappelle's building a comedy club out of an old fire station. So that would be perfect for Bob, but he needs to be careful. I think Chappelle might be doing it to get him in there so he could steal more of his jokes. No, but this whole thing was a classic, and it led to a lot more. Like, there's a giant feud between Artie and some other comedians on the show because he called them the Hack Pack, which I'll probably cover soon, maybe over on Patreon. So if you guys enjoyed the video, if you like this kind of content, make sure you check it out. There's a ton of stuff up there. Like recently, I just talked about how Howie Mandel actually responded to one of my videos. So if you want to hear about that, or you want to keep up with everything going on in comedy, or hear about some of these old stories, make sure you check it out. I'll put a link in the description.